Hey friends, and welcome back to another video. I'm so excited to see you guys. I hope you guys are doing well. You know what's one of my favorite snacks in the whole wide world? Cheez-Its. I love any kind of cracker or snack that has really fun little interesting shapes, and Cheez-Its are no different. As you guys know, Cheez-Its are in the shape of little squares, which is pretty cool if you ask me. That's the really cool thing about shapes, is that everything in the world, everywhere you look, is made out of shapes. I mean, our crackers sometimes are squares. I have a little pin right here that's a nice little circle. The DVDs that we really like, well, that's a rectangle right there. And even something like a piece of pizza, that's a triangle for you. That's what's so cool about shapes, is that everything is made out of them. Now, in art, shapes are incredibly important because they help us draw anything that we want. Like I said earlier, everything in the world is made out of shapes. So, if we learn what shapes make up different objects, it's a lot easier for us to draw them. Now, before we start learning how we can use shapes to draw stuff, I think we need to break down shapes just a little more. Now, in art, there are two different kinds of shapes that we talk about. There's geometric shapes and organic shapes. Now, the first one we're going to be talking about is geometric. Geometric is simply the shapes that we've been learning about since preschool. These are things like circles, squares, triangles, rectangles, diamonds, all that good stuff. Now, what makes a geometric shape not only means that it's one of the simple shapes that we've been learning forever, but it uses lots of lines, and it's very straight and neat. Now, obviously, I'm not the straightest or neatest drawer in the world, but in theory, these are very straight, very neat, and they're what we call symmetrical. They match on each side. This side of my square is going to match this side of my square, and vice versa. Everything is very orderly. It literally looks like something that we can get when we go to the toy store and we get some blocks. That is what we call a geometric shape. Now, the other kind of shapes that we talk about are not geometric shapes. These are ones that we call organic shapes. And no, they aren't shapes that you find with hipsters at a farmer's market. Organic shapes are just shapes that are a little more complex than geometric shapes. Now, these are shapes that we usually find out in the world, or it could just be very weird imaginative shapes that don't really fall into the category of something like squares and circles and triangles and all that good stuff. So, if we look right here, this is a geometric shape. We have square, triangle, circle. An organic shape could have lots of curvy areas, and it just is very random like this. Now, we also see this a lot with things that we see out in the world. For example, something like a leaf. So if we look at a little feather or a leaf, you see it's just a bunch of really jaggedy lines in a sort of teardrop shape. Doesn't necessarily fit into one of these categories. It's very curvy. It's not very straight and neat. So that's what we would consider an organic shape. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be something with nature. It could be anything from a hand to something super crazy like a light show at a stage. Right there is what we call organic shapes. Now, another great way that we can use shapes is to try to draw cartoon characters. The reason why shapes work really well here is cartoon characters are really simple. Now, here's a little picture of SpongeBob, which hopefully a lot of you guys know. And you look at this and it may look kind of confusing or difficult for you to draw right now, but I promise you, it's a lot easier if you don't look at it as SpongeBob. Look at it as just a whole bunch of lines and shapes together. So, we're going to do what's called an underdrawing. Now, underdrawings, just like it says, are drawings that are going to go underneath my final drawing. This is kind of like a sketch. I'm going to be very lightly with my pencil, not trying to draw exactly what I see, but more trying to find the shapes that I notice in here. So, right here, the biggest shape obviously is SpongeBob is essentially a cube. So I'm going to draw a big cube to make SpongeBob. So I'm going to make a big rectangle this way. And then I'm going to make another rectangle that's kind of like a trapezoid this way, since that's what another side of a cube would look like. And you see right here, we have the basic body. It doesn't look exactly the same. It's more about planning where everything's going to be at. So the next big shapes I see are his eyes, which are big circles. And then the mouth and stuff are going to be a little harder, so I'm going to save that for just a second. So now another really easy thing I can do is just draw a line right here, right? Because I know his shirt and pants are going to be separated by just a line, which is really easy for us. So that's there, and it's ready to go. Now, his arms and legs, the best thing to do for cartoons is just draw little cylinders. So think of like really, really skinny sticks or really skinny paper towel rolls. That is what I'm going to do. Again, it doesn't look exactly like it, but it's going to just be a way for me to find out where I'm going to put everything. So I'm going to put one over here and one right here. His legs are going to be the same thing, just going to be little cylinders. And then his shoes, I'm just going to put little circles for right now, because I know his shoes are very circular, and while they're not perfect circles, I'm just going to tell myself that's where it's going to be for right now. Now let's go back up to the face. We know there's 2 circles for his eyes, but the biggest challenge is going to be this area. So what I would suggest is maybe still start thinking about shapes, but maybe not simple shapes like circles and triangles and stuff like that. What we're going to do instead is start thinking about shapes that relate to things that we know in real life. This nose, to me, looks kind of like a pickle. And I know this sounds kind of crazy at first, but trying to find things that it looks like will help my brain draw it easier. I don't know how to draw a crazy nose, but I do know how to draw a pickle. It's pretty simple, right? All it is just a line that goes up. You have a curvy edge, and then another line that goes down right here. Right there, that's a pretty good SpongeBob nose. And then this cheek right here, it's kind of like a semicircle, which I know how to do pretty well, right? Semicircles aren't that scary. And then the mouth. So I look at the mouth and I think of a shark's fin. So I'm going to do a little shark fin this way for the top of his lip. And then just draw a little line for the end of his mouth. And then this one is the same thing. It's also kind of like a D, like the letter D. And right there, we have the beginning of his mouth. I'm going to draw a little circle for his tongue. And then his teeth are just 2 little squares like that. I think the only thing we're really missing are a couple lines for his eyebrows, or his eyelashes, excuse me, and some circles for his little holes. And then the hands, all I'm going to do, again, is just draw a little square. And then I'm going to draw little kind of hot dog shapes, sort of. Almost like you're doing really nice wavy lines. So I'm going to do a rectangle. And then just hot dog shapes, up and down, up and down. Right there, honestly, is starting to look a lot like SpongeBob. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to focus on what I see. So this is kind of going back to what we were talking about last week with lines. I'm going to focus on the contour lines, meaning the outline and all the details. And instead of trying to make the whole SpongeBob, I'm going to just focus on a little bit at a time. So let's just focus on the lines around SpongeBob. It looks kind of like a nice wavy line, right? So all I'm going to do, a little harder so that way it actually shows up, I'm going to just draw one wavy line here, one wavy line here, one wavy line here, one wavy line here, and one wavy line here. That's not too bad, right? And then I just kind of start to erase my underdrawing as well. It's already starting to look a lot like SpongeBob, actually. I can add some more details to right here. I know his sleeves are right here. It kind of looks like a strawberry or a guitar pick for my more musical people. Again, I'm just going to draw the detail that I see, and I'm going to just erase. Again, just follow the lines. It goes up, side, side, down, and then a little line right here. Up, side, side, down, and then a little line right here. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because this would take a little longer. But again, focus mostly on just following the lines. And don't expect it to be perfect. Your first attempt is not going to be the best. But you may surprise yourself with how good you do. And bada bing, there's SpongeBob. Now, we talked a lot about different kinds of shapes today, but no matter how different shapes may look, one thing they all have in common is that they're flat. So, when we're drawing shapes, anything that's two-dimensional or flat is what we call a shape. However, if it's three-dimensional, or if it looks like it's popping out at us, then it's no longer called a shape. We actually have a different word for that. Let's take a closer look at it. So, let's go back to our Cheez-Its. We already talked about how Cheez-Its look a lot like squares. And so if I was to draw this Cheez-It, I would just make a flat square, right? Pretty simple. But, what about this? Now, a lot of you guys probably know what this is, and if not, thanks for making me feel old. It's a Rubik's Cube. Now, if I was to draw this Rubik's Cube, I could draw one side of it right here, but that doesn't really show us the whole cube. This is a three-dimensional object. It has multiple sides, it's got a lot of volume to it, and so this is no longer called a shape. This is what we would call a form. So again, if I was to draw it, I would want it to look more like it's popping out of my page rather than trying to draw it flat. Whereas the Cheez-It, I could probably do with it being flat. So, anything that's flat and two-dimensional is a shape. Anything that is three-dimensional or looks like it's popping out at us, that's a form. And there you go. That's the difference between the two. Now in art, we can turn any shape, and just by adding a couple lines and a couple different sides, we can turn it into a form. So let's look at one of the easiest ways to do this. Here I have a little square. Let's say I want to turn this square into a cube. Now you can try to draw the cube at angles, but let me show you a little easier way. All you have to do is draw another square right next to it. Now half of this square is going to be inside the other square, and half of it's going to be out. So you see I'm drawing a line that goes half in, half out, half in, half out, and then the rest of it's out right here. And then all I have to do is match these points to each other using lines. So I'm going to match this point to this point, this point to this point, this point to this point, and this point to this point. It should match what we see. So this side should match with this side, and so on and so on. And then all I have to do is take my eraser and erase all the stuff inside that I don't want to see. And there you go. I have a little cube. Same thing you can use with a triangular prism. So if we want to draw a triangle, and then we want to draw a triangle outside, all we have to do is connect the points to the points that look exactly like it on the other triangle. Erase all the stuff that we don't want to see. And there you go. There's a triangular prism. Now some stuff is going to be a little harder. So for example, if I wanted to draw a cylinder, I would draw a really skinny oval and then another really skinny oval, almost like they're flat. And then I'm going to draw lines on each side. Erase the part I don't want to see. And there's a cylinder. If you want to draw a pyramid, we're going to draw a triangle but we're going to pretend that the triangle is shifted a little bit. So it's going to have a diagonal line this way, a regular line this way, and then a more slanted line this way. And then all I have to do is draw another line going down this way, and another line going down this way, and there you go. Now, something like a circle, all we have to do to make it a sphere is use something that we've talked about a couple weeks ago, which is value. So if I add just a little bit of shading to this circle, you see I'm using the hatching method that we talked about not too long ago. There you go. It's suddenly a sphere. And you can make any of these shapes so much more interesting if you just add a little bit of shading to it. Suddenly, these are no longer shapes. They are fully formed forms. So I hope you guys learned a little bit more about shapes today and how you can use shapes to build yourselves up to be so much better artists. Now, like I said last week, this video will be coming up on this Monday, and so you guys will be getting a new packet on Thursday if you guys come to packet pickup, and those videos that will help you with whatever's in that packet will come up next Monday. And I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure it's going to be really interesting, whatever it is. But if you have any questions about the packet work, or if you just want to come talk to us, don't forget our office hours, which we have every day from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And if not, you can always email me at xavier.corrales@wesdschools.org. Other than that, I hope you guys are doing well. Like I said last week, I really miss you guys, and I hope you guys are trying to stay creative during this. I know it's kind of a harder time, but I know you guys all are super creative and think outside the box all the time, so I know you guys are probably making something great, no matter what it is. Alright, until next time. Peace out, Girl Scouts. We'll see you at the next video.